Hey there. Subscribe to my channel. And also press this bell icon, so you never miss any new updates, cause whenever we upload new video you will get a notification on your phone.
Permit to Work Procedure. Purpose, Scope. The purpose of this document is to provide a coordinated, communicated and controlled safe system of work, which shall be carried out in hazardous, non-hazardous areas under COC jurisdiction. It is intended to achieve a safe working environment by providing the control needed to identify and mitigate any hazard, either actual or potential, that would have an adverse effect on either on the personnel performing the work, people adjacent to the work, public or on the facilities or environment. Without exception, all non-routine works to be carried out within COC premises shall have appropriate permit to work authorized by a respective permit issuer. Definition: EWP, Electronic Work Permit. Electronic Work Permit, EWP, is a web-based solution through COC Intranet to manage electronically the authorization process of non-routine activities which are carried out in COC business as per Permit to Work procedure. Permit applicant, a person representing the controlling department, such as maintenance, projects management, major projects etc., who has been nominated in writing by the respective team leader to raise a work permit. He must have the technical knowledge, skill and competence to consider and guard against the potential hazards associated with the work activity. Permit issuer, a person representing the asset operating team, in whose area of control the work is to be carried out, who has been nominated in writing by the respective team leader to issue a work permit. He will have a complete overview of all operational activities and also have detailed knowledge of the permit to work system. Worksite Supervisor, a person representing the controlling team, such as maintenance, project management, major projects etc., who has been authorized by the respective team leader to supervise the work at the worksite. The Worksite Supervisor can be a person belonging to the company, KOC, or contractor, as deemed suitable in the opinion of the controlling team, taking into consideration the criticality of work and its associated hazard. He must have detailed knowledge of the permit to work system. Authorized, competent electrical person, an electrical person, who has been authorized in writing by the respective area senior electrical engineer, to work, isolate, de-isolate, energize, de-energize, a high-end, or low-voltage electrical equipment. He must have sufficient technical knowledge and experience gaining the skill required to identify potential hazards and control measure associated with the high and low-voltage electrical work. The authorization must specify the competency of the person for low-voltage or high-voltage electrical works depending upon the qualification, experience and skill of the candidate. Authorized gas tester, a person who has successfully completed training on gas tester certification and accordingly been nominated by the HSE Group or Asset Directorate HSE team. An authorized gas tester can be a person belonging to the HSE Group, Asset/Directorate HSE teams or asset operating teams who has the detailed knowledge of permit to work system. An authorized gas tester can carry out gas test for any work permit related activities except for confined space entry initial gas test, which will be conducted by competent person for entry permit gas test as defined in entry into confined space procedure, COC.SA.07. However, for greenfield areas, project management consultants, PMC, can be authorized as gas tester including for confined space entry gas test also. The authorized gas tester shall successfully complete the PTW test and hold a valid PTW card issued by controlling team. Certified Radiographer, a certified person who has the necessary qualifications, experience and skill recognized by the Radiation Protection Department under Kuwait Ministry of Public Health for compliance with government regulations and company-approved codes of practice for work involving ionizing radiations. Controlling team, a team, which schedules, plans and coordinates the work. It must ensure all personnel under its jurisdiction are adequately trained and competent to perform their duties as required by the permit to work system. H2S SOMOPS, simultaneous operations. For the purpose of H2S SimOps in North Kuwait operations, H2S SimOps shall include any two or more sets of activities occurring at the same time and at the same location by different entities, organizations, or under different management systems. In this context, production operations, for example a live sour flow line, or sour wells, and drilling, workover operations are included as one of the activities. Other activities, such as construction, inspections, etc. on, or in the vicinity of the above could interact adversely with each other, causing loss of containment, resulting in increased risk to workers. Work in H2S SimOps zones will be carried out in accordance with Work Instruction for H2S SimOps Management, PPGGPR0001, and Respiratory Protective Equipment Selection and Use, PPGGPR0002. H2S SimOps zones, work areas where there is a risk of H2S presence or release. Applicable COC H2S related QRAs provide technical justification for these zones. These areas are clearly marked with H2S hazard warning signs. As a general rule of thumb, any work within 200 meters of sour North Kuwait infrastructure requires coordination with the H2S SimOps coordinator. Specific North Kuwait H2S SimOps zones are designated as H2S SimOps coordinator, a position, designated in writing by manager P and PG, team leader EPFO and M, and/or managers/team leaders of drilling groups, to coordinate and endorse concurrent work as defined under H2S SimOps in this document. H2S SimOps coordination pertains to all work associated with EPFO and M production facilities or sour drilling, workover operations within an H2S SimOps zone in NK. Hot Work Permit, a document that specifies precautions, identifies hazards and controls all work involving actual naked flames, sparks or has potential for creating sparks or heat. Cold Work Permit, a document that specifies precautions, identifies hazards and controls all work that is not hot and radiographic in nature. Radiography Work Permit, a document that specifies precautions, identifies hazards and controls all work involving radioactive sources. Confined Space Entry Permit, a document that specifies precautions, identifies hazards and controls all work involving entry to an enclosure, which has limited means of entry and exit, not designed for continuous occupancy and where there is a risk of encountering hazardous substances such as exposure to flammable, toxic, oxygen deficient, hot or humid atmosphere or any combination of it. Vehicle, Mobile Plant Entry Permit, a document that specifies precautions, identifies hazards and controls all work involving entry of a vehicle or mobile plant into a hazardous area. Suspended Work Permit, a permit for which isolations, precautions etc. are still in place, but the work is not in progress. 4.0 Permits Applicant. An appropriate work permit shall be raised by the permit applicant for any work within a restricted or hazardous area and shall be submitted for authorization to the respective permit issuer in whose area of control the work is to be carried out. A permit applicant A. is a member of the controlling department, such as maintenance, projects management or major projects etc., who will initiate the work. B. is nominated in writing by the respective team leader on the recommendation of the permit applicant's line supervisor. C. must have the technical competence to consider and guard against the potential hazards associated with work activity. D. must have detailed knowledge of the permit to work system. The appropriate permit shall be raised by the following listed authorities: personnel belonging to company, KOC, or the contractors depending upon the criticality of the work and its associated hazard. However, it is highly recommended for respective COC permit applicant to apply the permit particularly for critical works to be carried out during normal working hours. The authority to raise the appropriate permit for service contract personnel shall be approved by the controlling team and the approved list shall be copied to the fire team, respective area HSE team and asset operating team for reference and cross-check. COC supervision will be mandatory in case the service contract personnel are not approved for raising the appropriate permit. It is to note that a permit applicant can apply multiple permits at a time in his area of responsibility but cannot supervise more than one work at a time. The permit applicant shall comply with the following preparatory actions while raising a permit. A. All of the required information as stipulated in the permit must be entered before the permit is submitted for approval and authorization. B. Any required preparatory work must be stipulated on the permit application. C. Method statement, if any, for the work has been reviewed and approved. D. The job safety analysis, JSA, for the scheduled work has been carried out by the permit applicant. E. All personnel under his responsibility must be advised of their responsibilities under work permit system. F. No job can begin until he is satisfied that the worksite supervisor fully understands his responsibilities under work permit system. G. The safety gears and appliances required for the work must be available. H. He will carry out regular inspection of the worksite to ensure safe work practices and permit requirements are being adhered. 4.1 Permits Issuer. The responsibility for authorizing work permits rests with the asset operating team responsible for the operation of the facilities. The respective asset operating team leader, in whose area of control the work is to be carried out, can delegate the responsibility of permit authorization to their subordinates, provided that they have a complete overview of all operational activities and also have a detailed knowledge of the permit to work system. Additionally, as a part of further control and management of work, the asset owner can deliver standing instructions aiming to mitigate potential hazards associated with the work. Moreover, as part of work planning, permit issuer shall ask for method statement, functional work procedure, from permit applicant, whenever a critical activity is to be carried out. Examples of a few critical activities are excavation deeper than 1.2 meter, working at height more than 2 meters, heavy lifting, lifting above process pipes, confined space entry, working inside confined space, well site preparation for workover, etc. However, the list is not exhaustive and it can include any activity which permit issuer considers as critical. The following table, which for the guidance only, lists authorities or subordinates who might be nominated in writing as permit issuers by their team leader in compliance to job competency and the nature of work. The permit issuer is responsible to ensure that A. All hazards associated with the proposed work have been identified. B. Before any work begins, the worksite is safely prepared, examined and all specified precautions have been taken. C. Work permits that may interact or affect one another are cross-referenced clearly. D. The worksite is examined to ensure that it is in safe and acceptable condition. I. When work is suspended. 2. Before restarting the work. 3. When returning to normal operation. E. The shift change handover procedure is properly followed and permit renewal, endorsement and transfer of responsibilities have been completed. Work of an urgent nature may continue during the shift change period provided agreement has been obtained from the asset owner in advance. F. Prior to closing or cancelling a work permit, any precautions and isolations have been withdrawn and the system returned to normal operation. G. When work is completed and the work permit is signed off, the permit issuer closes the work permit and returns the equipment to operation. 4.2 Worksite Supervisor. The worksite supervisor shall be a person authorized in writing by the controlling team to supervise the work. The worksite supervisor is responsible to the permit applicant for all aspects of safety related to work and the work party. He must have a detailed knowledge of the permit to work system. The worksite supervisor can be a person belonging to company, KOC, or contractor as deemed suitable in the opinion of controlling team considering the criticality of work and its associated hazards. It is to note that each worksite shall have a dedicated supervisor and she cannot supervise multiple worksites at a time. The worksite supervisor shall ensure a. He has detailed working knowledge of procedures related to his work activity. b. He does not start any job requiring a work permit until it is authorized and issued. c. He understands the limitations and restriction of the work permit in order that work may proceed safely. d. All members of the work party adhere to safe working practices and are fully conversant with the limitations, restrictions and hazards involved. e. He conducts toolbox talk and pre-job briefing to ensure all precautions specified in work permit are taken. f. He does not leave the work site during hot work, vessel entry, radiography, and excavation work. g. Permission is obtained from the permit applicant and permit issuer to leave the work site during performance of cold work. h. He initiates permit renewal ensuring the work permit is renewed, endorsed as necessary and responsibilities are passed to the oncoming worksite supervisor at the shift change handover. I. The job described on the work permit is completed and the worksite as well as equipment is left in a safe condition if not completed. J. On completion of the job, the work permit is signed off and passed to the permit applicant and permit issuer for the equipment, worksite to be returned to the asset owner. K. The original work permit along with all referred documents and relevant certificates is prominently displayed at the worksite at all times during the work. 4.3 Nomination, Authorization of Personnel for Permit to Work System. All the personnel associated with Permit to Work System shall fulfill the following competency requirements before being authorized for their stipulated role. A. In addition to his prerequisite educational qualification and experience for the job, he must have detailed knowledge of the Permit to Work system. B. He must have successfully completed training on the Permit to Work system and have passed the qualifying test, written as well as oral, relevant to his role. The passing score for such test shall be minimum 70% and can be further increased by controlling team taking into account work criticality, competency and skill required for the job. It is to note that competency and skill is not limited to knowledge about permit to work only but essentially of jobs, activities relevant to the role. C. The concerned controlling team, which has ultimate responsibility for safe execution of work in their area of jurisdiction, shall arrange such training on PTW and qualifying tests for respective workers as per their stipulated role. D. Once the concerned employee or contractual worker successfully qualifies in the PTW test, he will be issued a laminated authorization card, as sampled below, by the concerned controlling team. E. The test questionnaires for each category of authorization shall be provided by the concerned controlling team. A sample of questionnaires on permit to work has been provided by HSE Group and also made available on Safety Team webpage. F. The cardholder may get the work permit authorization card revalidated on its expiry, every 2 years or contract period whichever is earlier, after completing again the required training and testing. Procedure. The Permit to Work, PTW, procedure is a formal written system that utilizes a document, work permit, to control work by means of potential hazard identification and risk assessment. The work permit is also a means of communication among various supervisors or their representatives belonging to operation, maintenance, controlling teams and contract personnel, who are involved in work preparation or its execution. To ensure the permit to work system is effective, do not attempt to bypass IT. The system is intended to ensure personnel and environmental safety as well as plant and equipment integrity. The work permit is not simply a permission to carry out the job, rather it is a cornerstone for a safe system of work, which determines how that job can be carried out safely. A work permit is not just an exercise in form filling. Your signature on work permit confirms your responsibility towards the safe preparation and execution of the work. Work covered by work permit. Work shall not be carried out unless a. It has been approved by a service request, maintenance work order, routine maintenance work, plan corrective work, preventive maintenance schedule, and plant modification approval. All other works not defined above must be approved and agreed by the permit issuer. However, work of a routine operational nature does not require permit authorization. B. The work is permitted under the E-beam service request or work order. C. The work has been planned and agreed 24 hours in advance, or is of a breakdown nature or priority unplanned work which requires immediate action. D. All works have been properly authorized. All works that are not of a routine nature, in any area require a work permit, with the exception of emergency safety work that is either loss of life actual or loss of life potential. In the event of such situations, the permit issuer or the senior-most COC personnel available at site is authorized to verbally allow the work to commence immediately, and informing the asset owner subsequently. Work permits shall be prepared as soon as practical to cover the work being carried out. In case of such emergency work, it must be recorded in operation logbook and signed by the permit issuer. It is to note that even though work permit is not needed for routine works, however, such routine activities must be carried out by skilled and competent persons considering all precautionary measures and applicable procedural requirement for the job. Work planning. An essential requirement for safe and efficient administration of the work permit system is comprehensive forward planning. A work permit meeting shall be held on each location to define the precise work to be performed and subsequential execution of work. F. The tools and equipment required and any necessary safety procedures. G. The area, system and equipment to be worked on and any hazards or potential hazards that may arise. H. Whether the work shall affect any other area, system or equipment either adjacent or remote. The timing of this meeting, usually 24 hours in advance of the planned work, shall be decided locally, and as minimum shall involve the permit applicant, permit issuer, worksite supervisor, and contractor safety officer. The respective asset safety engineer, safety officer may also be invited for such meeting depending upon work criticality. Breakdown and priority unplanned work may necessitate immediate action. Types of work permits. The permit to work system incorporates the use of 5 types of work permits. Cold work permit, hot work permit, radiography permit, vehicle, mobile plant entry permit, confined space entry permit. Note, confined space entry permit and vehicle, mobile plant entry permit are valid for entry purpose only. Any work to be carried out inside the confined space or in the facility will require additional appropriate permit. Work permit validity. Hot, cold, radiography, valid for a maximum duration of 7 consecutive days from the date of issue subject to renewal by the permit issuer. The permit has to be renewed, re-endorsed in case of shift change, transfer of responsibility, work suspension or as recorded in the permit. The validity period for cold or hot work permit pertaining to non-routine activities, such as minor construction, maintenance, renovation, in a non-hazardous area can be extended for a maximum period of 1 month with due approval from concerned team leader, taking all precautionary measures for safe execution of work. Confined space entry permit, valid for 1 continuous work shift or part thereof. However, the permit is to be renewed, re-endorsed in case of crew change, transfer of responsibility, work suspension or as recorded in the permit. Vehicle, mobile plant entry permit, valid for 1 continuous works shift for vehicle entry, whereas for mobile plant entry it is valid for maximum 7 consecutive working days from the date of issue subject to renewal by permit issuer. The permit needs to be renewed, re-endorsed in case of shift change, work suspension or as recorded in the permit. Work permit application. All identified work must be authorized and planned prior to work permit application. It is to note that separate work permit has to be applied for each activity or equipment or location. The permit applicant shall raise the appropriate work permit with a full description such as the worksite, the equipment to be worked on, the exact nature and scope of work, supported with sketches or drawings if available, special tools or equipment that may impact on safety at the worksite. The permit applicant shall to the best of his knowledge complete the relevant sections on the work permit, attaching completed JSA sheet and present it to the permit issuer for review and authorization. Work permit authorization. The permit issuer shall review the work permit and any supporting documentation and complete the appropriate sections. He shall arrange for equipment preparation, for example depressurizing, draining, flushing, purging and any process, mechanical, safety and electrical isolations. When he is satisfied that the worksite has been safely prepared and safety precaution put in place, he shall authorize the work to proceed. It is to be ensured prior to authorizing the permit that only work identified on the work permit shall be carried out on and no account can any deviations to the agreed work scope take place without a new permit being written. Work permit issuance. The worksite supervisor assigned by the permit applicant shall sign to acknowledge he understands and accepts the work permit and associated worksite responsibilities. The worksite supervisor shall then obtain the first endorsement for the work to proceed from permit issuer. No amendment to the work permit is permitted without the approval of the permit issuer. Mistakes must be crossed out with a single line and initialed by the permit applicant and permit issuer. Any overwriting or correction fluid on the work permit invalidates it and it shall be cancelled immediately. If a work permit has all the endorsements complete but the isolation and work are to continue, a new permit shall be raised. The new permit number shall be deleted and the previous number annotated on it, thus preserving the original isolation tags. The new work permit must be applied for and authorized following the normal procedure. Similarly, if the number of isolations required are more than the number of endorsement boxes provided in the work permit, referred to as original, a new permit shall be raised with the new permit number struck out with a single line and replaced with the original work permit number so that all the isolation tags as per original work permit are preserved. Each work permit endorsement renewal is only valid for a maximum period of one shift, 12 hours, or as recorded in the permit by permit issuer. Work extension to the next shift must be endorsed, renewed by the oncoming permit issuer. If the work permit endorsement, renewal boxes have all been completed, then a new work permit must be raised. Transfer, share of responsibilities. Permit issuer. The work permits issued in the same shift shall be presented for transfer of authority to the oncoming permit issuer in case the original issuer has to leave the permit control center. However, it is to note that permit renewal in case of shift change shall not require any transfer of responsibility but only shift endorsement. In case of two asset owners, for example production operations and gas operations, in the same work location, the endorsement from the second asset owner may be taken in the transfer of responsibilities box. Additionally, in all transfer of responsibilities, whether for permit applicant and worksite supervisor, the endorsement of permit issuer will be essential. Permit applicant. Similarly, the responsibility has to be transferred to the oncoming permit applicant in case the original applicant is leaving the area of his responsibility for any reason whatsoever. Worksite supervisor. Work must stop if he leaves the site unless a substitute authorized by the permit applicant and permit issuer is present. If the need of responsibility transfer, for a permit applicant, worksite supervisor, arises more than once during the permit validity period, then in such situation the existing permit has to be cancelled and a new permit is to be applied. Cross-referencing. All work permits associated with the same work or equipment must be cross-referenced by mentioning the work permit number in the box provided on each permit. Work permit suspension. In the case of a dangerous situation at the worksite or adjacent facilities, all work must stop immediately and shall not recommence until worksite is declared safe and subsequently the permit is endorsed, renewed by the permit issuer. In such situations, such as fire or gas leak, the workers, on hearing the dangerous situation alarm, shall vacate the area after making the worksite safe and will proceed to the designated assembly point for mustering and further instruction. The permit issuer, permit applicant and personnel from fire team, HSE group are authorized to stop the work in the event of a work permit violation, unsafe acts or unsafe conditions. Any person can advise to stop the work if they observe any hazard or potentially hazardous condition. Any unsafe or hazardous condition must be immediately reported to the permit issuer, permit applicant and the respective area HSE team as well as fire station. If on investigation it is determined that the work permit is to be suspended, the permit issuer must be informed immediately. Any suspended work permit shall be endorsed in Box 10, Shift Change Endorsement Box, of that permit and be kept in the custody of the permit issuer under the suspended work permit file. A work permit can be suspended for a maximum of 5 days or until the expiry of its validity period, whichever is sooner, in which case the work permit must be cancelled and signed off. Either a new work permit shall be raised or the system and equipment placed in long-term isolation as appropriate. Closing a work permit. On completion of the worksite supervisor shall check the worksite and ensure all tools and equipment have been removed as well as housekeeping completed. He will inform the permit applicant and both shall sign the work permit signifying handover of the equipment. The permit applicant is responsible for satisfactory handback of the worksite. The permit issuer shall ensure the area is acceptable prior to signing to accept the handover of the area and equipment. The permit issuer can allow the isolation of the equipment. The permit issuer shall ensure that all isolations are removed, the system and equipment purged and aligned as necessary. He shall then sign to close the work permits and allow the equipment to be reinstated. Work permit distribution. Work permits will be made out in 4 copies. The original will be kept by the worksite supervisor for worksite. First copy shall be kept with the permit applicant. Second copy of all permits, except cold work permit, will be forwarded to fire team by the permit issuer prior to job commencement or respective area fire station is notified, and subsequently second copy is forwarded to fire team within 48 hours from the permit authorization. Third copy shall be retained by the issuing authority. After successful completion of the work and permit closure as per procedure, the original shall be kept on record with the permit issuer, whereas the first copy shall be retained by the permit applicant, for a minimum period of 6 months before it is sent to dead record room for archiving. The third copy can be given to worksite supervisor for their record and reference. If an accident or incident occurs associated with a work permit, the original copy of the work permit shall be attached to the incident report and a copy retained on the file. Worksite preparation. It is the responsibility of the permit issuer to ensure the safe preparation of the worksite. When deemed necessary by the permit issuer, a formal plant and equipment preparation procedure shall be prepared prior to work commencing, making reference where necessary to any simultaneous operation procedures. The equipment to be worked on shall be isolated from all sources of energy, such as electrical, mechanical, hydraulic and pneumatic etc., and prepared as per the job requirement, such as depressurization, decontamination, flushing and purging etc., to confirm safety and integrity of worksite. The permit issuer in liaison with the permit applicant shall mark up P and I.D dots in conjunction with detailed valve isolation, vent or drain valves open details, mandatory for all vessel entry and process isolation. The possible impact of the work on the surrounding area must be assessed and care taken not to issue a work permit which could impact on the safety conditions for other work permits in the area. Based upon the detailed work description, The hazards shall be assessed and the required precautions to be taken to enable the work to proceed safely shall be indicated on the work permit. Cold work. Any work that does not involve a source of ignition or naked flame or does not have spark generating potential is classified as cold work. The performance of cold work shall require, but is not limited to the following precautions. A. If a gas test is required, it shall be carried out immediately prior to the commencement of work, and, if the work party has left the work site, immediately prior to recommencement of the work. B. If continuous gas monitoring is required, the worksite supervisor and the person performing the work shall ensure that the portable gas detectors remain charged and in working order. C. The worksite supervisor shall ensure that all personnel under his control strictly adhere to the constraints of the work permit, that is work description, equipment, area, terms and conditions, restriction of the work permit. D. The worksite supervisor must remain at the worksite during performance of the work. Should the worksite supervisor require leaving the worksite, he must make prior contact with the permit applicant and permit issuer advising the reason and duration he will be absent from the worksite. The worksite supervisor can leave the worksite only if the permit applicant and permit issuer agrees it. This privilege applies only to cold work permits. Hot work. Any work, which involves the use of naked flame or a source of ignition or spark generating potential, capable of igniting a combustible or explosive material, is classified as hot work. Prior to any hot work being authorized, the permit issuer must consider the following points. E. Can the work be removed to a safe location? F. Is it essential for production or safety reasons to perform the work during operation of the plant? Can the work be deferred until a shutdown or partial shutdown? G. Have the work scope and potential hazards been discussed among the permit applicant, safety personnel, permit issuer and worksite supervisor? H. Paint spraying and hand painting are not permitted during performance of the hot work. I. Cold work permits likely to cause a gas release must be suspended. J. The permit issuer and permit applicant shall make regular site visits during the work. K. Total isolation from flammable or toxic gas, liquids must be achieved by either physical disconnection, blanking, spading, using correctly rated blind, spade, double isolation valve with bleed valve in between. Any combination of the above as deemed necessary by permit issuer and permit applicant. L. It may be necessary to raise a cold work permit for this preparatory work. The permit issuer shall assess this after discussion with permit applicant. M. Before any hot work can begin, the permit issuer must ensure the equipment is free of liquid gas by depressurizing, draining, venting, purging and flushing. Any combination of the above. N. During hydrocarbon venting to atmosphere, any hot work permit at the location must be suspended. O. The hot work site must be free of hydrocarbons and combustible materials, for example sludge, scale, deposits etc. P. The work site shall be gas tested and certified as being gas-free by an authorized gas tester. The maximum lower explosive limit permissible for authorized hot work is 0% LL. Q. If the work generates spark or chippings, the work must be suitably confined. R. If the work is above accessways, precautions must be taken to ensure that no sparks or hot metal can fall below. Additionally, the area beneath the work site must be barriered off and warning notice posted in English and Arabic. S. Mobile plant and equipment shall not be sited in hazardous or non-hazardous locations unless it meets the safety requirements specified for its area of operation. 5.13.2 Radiography work. Any work that involves the use of a radioactive source shall be covered by a radiography permit. The transportation, control and handling of radioactive isotopes must be in compliance with Radiation Protection Manual and Kuwait Ministry of Health regulations in this regard. Precautions that must be adhered to include but are not limited to: A. The permit applicant shall raise a radiography work permit. Where possible, this work shall be scheduled during mealtimes or night shift. B. The radiography work permit shall be issued, endorsed for a maximum of 7 days subject to renewal by permit issuer. C. A three-dimensional control area shall be designated and marked by barriers. D. Prior to commencement of radiography, all other work permits within the controlled area or as specified by the permit issuer, shall be suspended. E. Identified UV detectors shall be overridden and recoded in the work permit. F. A public address, PA, announcement, as available, shall be made 30 minutes prior to radiography commencement advising all non-affected personnel to make safe their workplace and vacate the area. A further PA announcement, as available, shall be made 5 minutes prior to radiography commencement advising non-affected personnel to vacate the area immediately. G. The radiographer and assistant radiographer shall check the area to ensure all non-classified personnel have vacated the area. Then final PA announcement, as available, shall be made advising the radiography is commencing. 5.13.3 Confined Space Entry Permit. Any enclosure having a limited means of entry and exit and not designed for continuous occupancy is defined as a confined space. Examples include, but are not limited to, the following: I. Process vessels, tanks, bins, stacks, large pipe, ducts, pits, and vaults. 2. Any enclosure where the presence of air contaminants may be harmful to a worker and prevent his ability to escape unaided. The following are the minimum precautions that must be taken. They apply even when a person's head is inserted into the confined space for the purpose of a quick visual inspection. These requirements are applicable to all process and utilities systems irrespective of service. A. Entry to confined space can only be authorized by the permit issuer, asset owner. At the start of each shift, a new confined space entry permit must be issued in due consideration of precautionary measures required as per SEAM's procedure, Entry into Confined Space, COC.SA.007. B. The permit issuer and permit applicant must make regular site visits during the work. The Worksite Supervisor shall be fully aware of the confined space entry procedure and the permit to work system. C. The confined space must be positively isolated from all processes and utility systems by blanking, spading or disconnection. Where disconnection is employed as a means of isolation, the line shall be blanked. D. Isolations must be achieved as close to the confined space as possible, preferably on the nozzles. If this is not achievable, then the next nearest point of isolation will be selected. E. If the confined space is equipped with a source of electrical power, an electrical isolation must be carried out and ensured that the confined space and equipment to be used are earthed prior to the issue of entry permit. F. The confined space must be tested for oxygen levels, flammable vapor and toxic gases prior to entry and at an interval as specified in the permit subsequently. If the confined space is vacated, a new gas test shall be performed prior to re-entry. A portable gas monitor must also be sited for continuous monitoring. G. When determining the criteria for confined space entry without breathing apparatus, the associated hazards due to sludge, scale and deposits must be considered. These residues can contain and emit dangerous levels of vapor. Pyrophoric iron sulfide may also be present, and the danger of ignition if allowed to dry out and be exposed to oxygen must be considered. H. A standby man shall be stationed at each confined space entry point. He shall be equipped with a portable radio and must keep visual contact with personnel working inside the confined space. I. The standby man will inform control room each time the confined space is entered or vacated, and all entries as well as exits will be recorded in control room logbook. Additionally, the standby shall also keep a record of personnel's entry, exit at the worksite. J. In case of emergency inside the plant, The confined space entry must stop immediately. The standby man shall advise the control room by radio, when the personnel inside the confined space have vacated. The site shall be made safe and the personnel shall proceed to muster at the designated assembly point. K. If an emergency occurs within the confined space, the standby person must not enter it until rescue team arrives. It is the responsibility of standby man to summon aid immediately by contacting the control room through radio or other available means of communication. L. Personnel working inside the vessel will be given a rest period at each 30 minutes intervals, or more frequent depending upon prevailing conditions such as heat stress, humid atmosphere etc. M. The area around the confined space must be barriered off and warning sign posted in English and Arabic. N. As and when needed, the opinion and assistance from HSE personnel may be sought to ensure the safety aspects of a confined space entry. Vehicle, mobile plant entry permit. Any vehicle or mobile plant will not be allowed to enter into a hazardous area except under duly authorized entry permits subjected to inspection and authorization by the permit issuer. However, the vehicle entry to a tank farm will require a permit only if it enters the plant area, such as bund wall, to carry out specific work, activity duly authorized by asset owner. A. The vehicle or mobile plant required to enter inside a hazardous area under duly authorized entry permit must be checked by the permit applicant prior to applying the permit to confirm its suitability, safety and integrity. Refer to SEM's procedure on temporary mobile equipment COC.SA.013. B. The mobile plant, such as air compressors, welding machines, primus stoves, tar boilers and diesel engine generator etc., must have at least 2 fire extinguishers duly approved by fire team. C. The validity of entry permit for the vehicle will be 1 continuous work shift, whereas for mobile plant, it will be valid for 7 consecutive days from the date of issuance subject to renewal by permit issuer. It is to be noted that the permit is valid for entry only, however for carrying out any work, a separate appropriate permit is to be authorized as per procedure. D. The entry permit needs to be endorsed, renewed by oncoming shift after carrying out necessary gas test. 5.13.5 Excavation Notification. Excavation notification is not a permit to work but a document to notify the concerned authorities, which have responsibility and jurisdiction for safety and integrity of above-ground and underground services existing at the proposed site of excavation. An excavation notification is required for all excavations regardless of the depth. The excavation notification shall be raised by the respective supervisor or engineer and must be endorsed by all concerned parties. A. An excavation notification must be supported by a primary work permit duly authorized by the permit issuer. A cold work permit shall be additionally required where only hand excavation tools are to be used. Whereas for excavations work using powered tools, such as mechanical excavator, backhoe, shovel, loader etc., will need a duly authorized hot work permit if work is to be carried out in a hazardous area. Mechanical excavation is not allowed inside the plant or facility or within 5 meters radius from any underground facilities. B. For excavations deeper than 1,200 millimeters, a confined space entry permit is required and in some circumstances gas-free certification also. Refer Excavation Procedure COC. SA.026 for further detail on excavation. C. A drawing or sketch of the proposed excavation site, showing above and underground services, must accompany the excavation notifications to enable the affected disciplines to check and specify precautions and hazards prior to signing the approval. D. If a buried cable or pipeline is encountered during excavation, the work must stop immediately and the permit issuer informed. The permit issuer shall liaise with the permit applicant to decide best course of action. E. The excavation notification is valid for a period of 90 days from the date of issuance. That is date asset owner has signed, or as stated in the permit. F. The endorsement from fire team on excavation notification is required prior to digging, trenching cutting within the bonded area of crude oil, effluent or oily water storage tank. G. The excavation notification should be linked and cross-referenced with COC recommended practice, COC L002, or its updated version for clearance requirements on buried pipelines, cables and other underground services. H. The respective supervisor or engineer initiating the excavation notification must ensure that the proposed excavations, trenches will not obstruct the movement of emergency vehicles, such as fire tender, ambulance etc., to the work site. 5.1 Isolation, multi-lock and tag out. Isolation, multi-lock and tag are an integral part of the work permit system. If plant or equipment is specified requiring isolation as a condition of work permit, then the required isolation, such as electrical, mechanical, instrument and telecommunications, must be identified by permit authorities, applicant and issuer, and mentioned in the appropriate section of the work permit. The isolation shall be carried out by nominated and authorized personnel only, from COC and service contractor, and the isolation detail must be entered on relevant sections of the work permit. If isolations require locking off, then the official company padlocks clearly stamped with an individual ID number must be used. If the padlocks cannot be installed, other immobilizing device, as specified by the permit issuer, can be used. Each isolation point, such as padlock, immobilizing devices, valves or spades, blinds, blanks, and any vent or drain which has been opened or closed must have do not operate tag referencing the permit or isolation certificate. Moreover, such tags shall be strong enough to withstand the weather condition and possible impact from adjacent activities. 5.14.1 Mechanical isolation. Any mechanical isolation of equipment, pipeline or unit in the facility shall be carried out by the operation personnel with due approval from the shift controller. Prior to approving such isolation, the control room operator shall review the overall impact on the safety and integrity of the plant, process as well as to the workforce, which may arise due to it. The isolation point in the plant area must be tagged to prevent any interference. Any spading or blanking of the pipeline shall be taken up through a duly authorized cold work permit. The task shall be carried out under overall responsibility of the mechanical maintenance crew with approval from asset owner. The type of isolation used shall depend on the level of risk associated with the work to be performed. A. Positive isolation, physical disconnection and blanking of open ends, the turning of spectacle blind, the insertion of spades between flanges or the replacement of a spacer with a line blind. Blanks, spades, blinds, bolting and gaskets shall conform to the piping specification and rating for the equipment. B. Double block and bleed, valve isolation is the industry standard for isolating a valve. C. The isolation point, spade location and any deviation from normal operation, such as opening or closing of vent, drain valve, must be marked on the P&I.D. and attached with the work permit for ready reference. Moreover, such isolation, deviation must also have do not operate tag at the location to prevent unintentional interference. D. The mechanical isolation and spading information shall be maintained at the facility control room in the form of record registers sampled as Appendix C of this procedure. The effectiveness of isolations must be tested and proved. If an isolation valve is passing, it may be necessary to shut additional valves or take further plant and equipment out of service. 5.14.2 Electrical isolation. Prior to authorizing a work permit, it is essential to ensure that the equipment to be worked on is safe and electrical power isolated for the safe conduct of authorized work. The requirement for electrical isolation shall be specified by the permit issuer in liaison with the permit applicant. The authorized electrical person as appropriate completes the electrical isolation and enters the detail on work permit subsequent to discussion with the permit issuer. The authorized electrical person shall keep the padlock key in safe custody to prevent inadvertent tampering. Once electrical power is isolated for any equipment and the work permit issued, such equipment must not be made live or electrically de-isolated until work has been completed, the permit returned to the issuing authority, the work site, equipment and system have been checked and clearance has been granted by the permit applicant and permit issuer. The authorized electrical person, from COC, shall raise an electrical work certificate in the format as provided in Appendix C of this procedure giving all the specified details. The certificate shall be attached to the respective permit as an additional check prior to commencing the work as well as for convenient reference while isolating or commissioning the equipment. The electrical work certificate shall be cross-referenced with the associated work permit. The electrical isolation record shall be maintained at substation, switchgear room in compliance with electrical multi-lock and tag-out procedure, COC.SA.022, which is to be referred for further detail on this issue.
Hey there. Subscribe to my channel. And also press this bell icon, so you never miss any new updates, cause whenever we upload new video you will get a notification on your phone.